want to switch gears a little bit with you, man, because one of your superpowers that I want the listeners to kind of hear about is you have an eye for cash flow. And cash flow is king. That's why we're doing this. We're doing real estate to create additional cash in our pockets. And so you kind of told me the other day when we were just chatting about some homes you bought in Ohio, I believe it was. And you were giving me some numbers, and I thought the numbers on those properties were just really amazing, is the truth. And so I'd love for you to kind of walk the listeners through kind of how you found these properties, how you got into it, and kind of what they're cash flowing. Because I really truly think that, again, while I'm on in co-living, what you've kind of discovered is like it's a niche. It's another niche, that's small. Not everybody can do it, but you did it in a really, really cool way. So I'd love if you'd chat us through that.
Yeah, of course. So the properties that I found were the city's called Toledo, Ohio. So there's different cities around the U.S. that you can venture into, but you really want to understand the market and really zone in on the market. And you want to get to the point where you understand zip codes. Because even though, like, for example, I'm telling you Toledo, Ohio, there's certain zip codes that you want to buy and certain zip codes that you want to stay away from. So for you to understand that, you really have to start speaking to people that live in the cities. And you're building relationships with property managers and contractors. I think contractors are one of the most undervalued people, and they have like the best insight information that they can give you, as well as property managers. Real estate agents are okay, but they are limited to what they can say because they cannot discriminate against any areas. So they're not allowed to say as much as you'd want them to say versus property managers and contractors where they basically have no filter. They can tell you as much as they want.
I remember you telling me that when we did our little live. That was a kind of a mind-blowing moment for me. Was, I'm big on investing where as well. And but if you don't know the area, how do you get data on that area? And you were the first one to kind of tell me, like, man, call a contractor. And I was like, or a property management company. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that before, but just realizing that they have probably some of the best data and they can tell you exactly what's going on street by street because they deal with this stuff every single day. And so I think that that's a really great hack, man. I love that. So continue. I just wanted to pull that out.
To add to that, if you work with the right property managers and you interview property managers and ask them if they have experience working with other investors, if you build a good enough relationship with them, they'll tell you where their investors are also buying. So that actually happened to me, where they literally broke it down by zip code to where these investors are purchasing and developing properties in the market that I chose. So the reason why I got into the market was basically just follow the leader type of thing. I had a good friend of mine that was buying properties for 20, 30,000, and I couldn't believe it. Coming from Massachusetts, you can't even find a garage for $20,000, $30,000, right? So they're finding entire homes. So when he told me, buying houses for 10,000, 20,000, I'm like, you show me a house for 10, 20,000, I'll fly out there right now, and you're gonna tell me nothing else. So I basically did just that. I flew out there to Ohio, basically just drove around the area, really got a sense of what that market looked like. I've only been to Ohio twice in the past 3 years, by the way. The first one was to go see and believe, and then the second one was to hire the property manager for the 11 properties that we ended up buying. So basically, he broke everything down to me. He's very clear as far as like what the houses were for, what the houses were selling for, how much rehab things, how much rehab houses needed, the types of the differentiation in costs. Because here, for an example, like a new roof will cost you $15,000 to $20,000 in Massachusetts. Ohio, it'll probably cost you anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000. So the price differentiation, you have to keep that in mind. That's why the numbers didn't really make sense to me, because I'm like, a roof is 15 grand. How is a house 15 grand? So that's kind of where I really started understanding, the numbers. So how much the rehab cost would cost me to fix a home, and if the deal even made sense. Because yes, there are houses that are 10, 20,000, but they probably need 50, 60, $70,000 in repairs, and they're only worth 50, 60 grand. So it's not even worth it. So you do have to go with some knowledge of what the rehab will cost you, because not every deal is a great deal. So where we found great deals were in the houses that just needed cosmetic work. cosmetic being under $20,000 worth of repairs. So when we go and buy these properties, we make sure that they're being bought in zip codes that appraise for good values, being over 60, 70,000, and we're purchasing them 40 to 50 cents on the dollar. So we're buying them super cheap, and they don't need that much rehab. They just need either new floor, new paint, new bathroom, maybe some fixtures on the roof, but nothing major. Major being like a brand new roof, brand new foundation, um, anything structural you want to stay away from, brand new electrical. These things are costly. Brand new plumbing. So you want to make sure that all those things are functional. And if you're obviously not there, which we weren't, we hired a really good contractor that we had developed a good relationship with. We would pay him $75 to go to to a house that we felt met our needs or met our buying criteria. He would go in, check to make sure that everything was functional. If it was, we would go ahead, purchase and rehab it. If it wasn't, then we would just pass that deal along. So the contractor was a huge played a huge role in our buying process because they were the ones that would tell us on the spot how much more or less we would be paying in renovations for that property. So if it met that buying criteria and it didn't exceed over $20,000 in repairs and we bought it for like 20, 30 grand, then we would go ahead and purchase the property because we knew that for a single family home, we can get at least $1,000 in rent per month. And we knew that because, again, establishing relationships, we started calling all the local housing centers in the city and basically build relationships with them and started asking them simple questions like, hey, do you have like a sheet of, how much you guys would pay for single family, multifamily apartment complex? They're more than happy to send you what they would pay. So we had an understanding of what, people in the area would pay, but then what housing centers would pay. And what housing centers would pay was almost double of what people were typically paying. Mind you, this was like after COVID, so rents did go up. There's people in Toledo paying like $300 to $500 a month for like a whole single family, and they've had it good. Now it's starting to change, and now you're starting to see prices increase. But they had it good for a while, But now that investors and other developers are coming in, they're now you're seeing rental prices increase. So from 2021 to now, they've gone from a single family has gone from like 700 to almost $1,000 in rent per month. So we've seen that increase. Prices of homes have also increased. This new development, General Electric is also going to be developing a plant out there to build electrical batteries. So that's going to be huge. When other corporations are coming into a city and bringing jobs, it's a good indicator that that market's going to continue to grow. So we went through an acquisition phase where we were just purchasing as many properties as we could, to the point where, obviously we maxed out and we wanted to make sure that we were handling everything in order. We went earlier this year to hire a property manager because we closed on 6 properties. So we have a total of 11 properties in Ohio, and we hired a property manager to basically manage those properties because we were managing it ourselves. But now we're in the phase that we want to scale, because we see the high potential growth in this particular market, and we have an understanding of the market, down to the zip code, and we have a great team: property managers, contractors, handyman, real estate agents that are searching for properties that are being sold, and we want to basically grow it, 10x it as much as we can, and take advantage of the growth because you're literally going through this particular city and it goes by blocks, believe it or not. Like you'll have one block that you'll see houses like 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, and the next block will probably houses like 70 to 100,000 plus. So like it's a different market, and that's why like even by blocks, when I started looking at it at a higher level, I'm like, wow, like this is how people can actually take over blocks. They buy properties, fix them up, but now they're increasing the value of the entire block. And then what does that do to the next block? When appraisers are looking for comps and they see your beautiful home that had just sold for like 70, 80 grand, now that $30,000 home that got renovated is worth 70,000 plus. So you literally have the power to control that market and to control those blocks. And when I started seeing it like that, I'm like, that's typically how things work. With gentrification, for example, like developers will pick certain locations, but they'll buy the hood or they'll buy like low income areas, buy them at a discounted price, beautify them, and then boom, everybody wants to live in there, and then it increases the price. But they've bought all these properties at such discounted price that they're basically bringing value. They're forcing appreciation into their own projects, and that concept blew me away because now I'm looking at properties here that are like pennies on the dollar, and you can, afford. Well, what I think you can afford to buy them, because where in the U.S. are you really going to find properties under 50 grand? It's really difficult.
Man, there's so much wisdom and goodness in what you're saying. I just feel like you're dropping the gold. The first thing that I want the listeners to really take away is that, when most people see a bad property, when most people see something run down, you see opportunity. And it was funny today. I took my builder to a piece of land, and I didn't know. I know Charlotte really well, but evidently this one intersection that I took him to, he said this is like one of the worst intersections in the entire Charlotte. He's like, this is called Hidden Valley. He's like, Google it. I'm like, well, damn, if you have to Google it, I'm sure it's not that good. He's like, yeah. But then we were chatting about it, and he was like, honestly, there are developments coming here. If you take this piece of land, you develop it, like maybe there's an opportunity. And so just this idea of like training your brain, instead of going in and seeing a rundown house, or instead of seeing, for me, when I go in and see a really boxy house, I see bedrooms, I see more cash flow, and seeing opportunity is just a mindset shift, what you see shift. It's a vision shift that I think is really, really, really important. So that's great. I also really love, because I get a lot of people that will ask me, how do I invest out of state? What does it look like to invest out of state? Do I have to invest where I live? And I think there's kind of three things that you said are really, really important that I want people to understand. You said you were able to invest, hundreds of miles away from where you are, and you've only been there twice, really for three reasons. And I want if you want to add anything to this, please feel free to add to it. But like you said, number one, I have a team. And I would add, you have a team that you trust, that you know, that you like, and that's key. The second thing you said is you have understanding. You understand the area, because each market is different. And so you had a friend, I'm assuming that you trusted. I think you said it was a friend who kind of first told you about this. And so having that person that you fully trust, that was my third thing, was just that trust, right? And like you said earlier, it's an area that you see is growing. It's an area that you see is expanding, and it's an area that you see some corporations coming into. It's got some positive growth to it as the other key. But if somebody can, find that team in that area that they trust, have a good understanding of the area, hopefully through someone they know, like, and trust, have that trust, and then also know that it's an expanding area, you can invest anywhere in the United States. You can invest anywhere in the world.